Good afternoon, everybody. This is Loretta Zita calling. Sorry. This is Loretta Zita from HRAI. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications. For some reason, I thought I was on a phone call. In any case, I'm happy that everyone is here to join myself and Sam and Anil from TSSA. Just a few housekeeping issues. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A section or the chat section located at the bottom of your screen. We will try to get through to everybody's question by the end of the presentation. This session is being recorded and will be available after the presentation. And we'll also have a survey that will be going out to all of the participants to help us identify some new or different webinars that you'd like to see. With that, let me introduce Sam Sadeghi, Fuels Safety Director at TSSA. Sam joined TSSA in November 2020 as the statutory director of the Fuels Safety Program. He has 15 years experience of progressive leadership experience in the fields of energy and fuel. We also have Anil Lal, Fuel Safety Engineer and Technical Services Manager at TSSA. Anil joined TSSA November 2021 as Manager, Engineering and Technical Services in the Fuels Safety Program. He's a chemical engineer with expertise in industrial gases, engineering, construction, and facilities management. And with that, I'd like to ask for Anil and Sam to open up their mics, and you can take the presentation away.
Thank you very much, Loretta. Sam, are you there?
I have a feeling that Sam's picture and recording has frozen. So Sam, if you wanted to exit out and come back in, you certainly can. Anil, do you want to start things off?
Sure, I will. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our annual TSSA HRA Joint Fuel Safety Webinar. Sam, the way we're going to do this presentation was Sam was going to go over the first half and kind of introduce everybody to the background of what TSSA does and some of the program information, and I was going to follow up with some additional trunk slammer specific data for this year. 1 second, Sam is just calling me. Hold on, everybody.
Sorry about this. Technical difficulties. Everything was working about half an hour ago. Here we go. We have Sam back on the line.
Sorry about that, folks. Like literally, as soon as Loretta introduced me, my laptop just turned off and magically turned back on. So that's an exciting start of the webinar. Anyways, I hope I didn't miss much. So good afternoon, everyone, and very excited to be here. As Loretta mentioned, my name is Sam Sadeghi. Really excited to be here in today's webinar with my colleague Anil Lal to speak to you about the trunk slammer awareness and enforcement program. In terms of the background for today's, maybe in terms of the agenda for today's meeting, next slide, please. We're going to go over some, relevant background information in terms of what the trunk slammer program is. We will talk about the lapsed authorization policy, which is a new program that we have launched at TSSA. We'll talk about the overview objectives and the public outreach program. And Anil is going to be talking about the fraudulent fuel worker incident, and we'll wrap it up with Q&A. Next slide, please. Okay, speaking about the background, next slide. The fuel-related risks in retirement and long-term care homes, private dwellings, and business units are among the top areas of risk that are identified by TSSA, and they are noted in the 2021 Public Safety Report. And inadequate installation of fuel burning appliances and poor maintenance work have been identified as the major contributing factors to these risk areas. Next slide. So let's go over a few some backgrounds. We really allow us to kind of paint a picture in terms of what trunk slammers are and how is this impacting the safety of Ontarians. So in accordance with OREC 212, no person shall install, alter, purge, activate, repair, service, or remove any appliance, equipment, or other things employed or to be employed in the holding or use of gas, unless the person is a holder of a certificate for that purpose, right? So essentially what this is saying is that you can't just have anyone showing up and start doing gas work. That person has to be the holder of a certificate for that particular purpose. Next slide, please. We've kind of paraphrased this section of OREC 215, but essentially what it says is that only training providers who are formally accredited by TSSA may provide training programs that lead to a fuel industry certificate. So each program that is taught by the training provider must be reviewed and approved by TSSA. So again, essentially what we're saying is that the only organizations that can provide training, they have to be reviewed and accredited by TSSA. Let's go over a few definitions also. So what does the word contractor actually mean, right? So a contractor is the person who carries on in whole or in part the business of installing, removing, repairing, altering, or servicing appliances, and includes a person or an agent of the person who agrees to install, remove, repair, alter, or service appliances sold or leased by the person. What's a certificate holder? It's a person who has obtained a certificate from the director, designating the person as one of the designations in Ontario in accordance with OREC 21501, i.e. A gas technician with a G1, G2, or G3. No person shall alter, purge, activate, service, or remove any appliances, equipment, or things employed in the handling or use of gas unless the person is a holder of a certificate for that purpose. And I think that kind of like, sets the stage in terms of what would be considered an illegal or fraudulent gas worker, or in other words, a trunk slammer. So I think it's important for us to keep these definitions in mind. That being said, I think, it's important pointing out that TSSA is aware of the fact that some certificate holders may be performing work that is outside of their authorization, or they're actually doing work without any registration. And our advice to the public is to hire registered contractors over certified gas technicians. And it's important for TSSA to provide oversight for all the Ontario's registered fuel contractor. And that means that a registered contractor's work and the work of their technicians is subject to TSSA audit for compliance with safety requirements. And not only can TSSA validate their knowledge, competency, and qualifications, we also have the ability to substantiate their contact information so that they're always held accountable to Ontario's consumers. But TSSA does not oversee certified technicians who work independently, and therefore we cannot provide Ontarians the same level of protection as it does with registered contractors. Next slide, please. So what are the certification requirements? So to obtain a gas technician certificate issued under OREC 215, the certification candidate must meet a number of requirements, and that includes successfully complete a TSSA accredited training program, which includes both in-class theoretical as well as the hands-on practical components. And in order to attain the certification, a certificate candidate must maintain 80% attendance during the program. They must score over 75% on the practical components and the modules within the training program, and also score greater than 75% on the TSSA Ontario Certificate of Qualification or examination. There's also a parallel path available, and that is to submit a detailed documentation providing the necessary proof of work experience to demonstrate the equivalency of the training, and they have to score against more than 75% on the examination. And it's only through these two avenues that an individual can actually get the necessary certification to perform gas work. Next slide, please. Let's talk about the certification obligation and rights. So once an individual is certified, a gas technician must upgrade their Ontario Certificate of Qualification issued by TSSA as required, has the opportunity to immediately start work with a TSSA registered heating contractor, or if they choose to become a TSSA registered heating contractor. It's also worth noting that a gas technician with just a G3 certification must be supervised by a G1, G2, or a DA certificate holder in these cases, so they can't just work on their own. Has the opportunity to work immediately without serving an apprenticeship term, and is responsible to uphold public safety by discontinuing the use of an appliance or work upon identifying an unacceptable condition that constitutes an immediate hazard. We receive a lot of those red tags, and it's important that those red tags get issued when a certificate holder comes across an unsafe or immediate hazard. Has the ability to work independently or with a team in a variety of work environments, including residential and commercial/industrial settings within the scope of their certification. And lastly, has the right to use the phrase TSSA certified in advertising and promotional material. Next slide, please. Speaking about the TSSA logo use, one of the things that has actually recently come up, and this is one of the things that has continuously been coming up, is that while TSSA authorized companies and individuals may refer to TSSA by company name in the text or on their website and on their marketing material, TSSA does not grant the use of its logo without express permission. TSSA will only grant express permission to use its logo when TSSA is directly involved in delivering a safety initiative. Unauthorized use of TSSA logo may cause confusion or public deception and depreciate TSSA's goodwill as Ontario's public safety regulator. So in other words, it could create what's called brand confusion. Any unauthorized use of TSSA's brand identity or logo by any company or contractor, including those selling fuel-fired appliances or energy services, will face an aggressive legal response. In the next slide, we have a few examples and pictures of the type of unauthorized TSA logo use that either our staff have identified or has been brought to our attention. It could include like a TSSA logo on business cards, or in the image that you see on the right, at the bottom right of the van, you could see the TSSA logo. So it is imperative that no one uses TSSA logo without the express consent. And in these cases, we do not allow the use of TSSA logo on contractor vehicles, as it could create brand confusion, and also possibly for members of the public to start associating the individuals driving that vehicle as employees of TSSA. Now, with respect to ensuring validity of a gas technician license, it's important for the contractors to ensure that the technicians they hire are licensed to perform the work they're assigned, and to find out the level and the validity of a technician certificate. Please contact TSSA at 1-877-682-8772. Just have the certificate number and the technician's full legal name, date of birth, and address ready. So this way we could just quickly validate that that individual has the appropriate certification. Anil is going to be talking about some examples of recent cases where certain contractors were found to have technicians working for them that was outside of the scope of their work, or also some fraudulent documentation that we identified where someone actually fraudulently made modifications to their certificate. So that is something that's on our radar, and we definitely take that very seriously. Next slide, please. So one thing that I think is really worth noting in terms of best practices that we would recommend to the contractors and those who are on the call or later on will be viewing this webinar is to create and regularly update a database of the employee certificates. Which employee holds what kind of certification, the renewal date, et cetera. Make it a habit of validating certificates on a monthly or quarterly basis during the company meetings, the daily toolbox talks, safety meetings, etc. So make sure that people have this on the forefront of their mind so that before certificates expire, the necessary actions are taken, and also to ensure that the individuals are, taking on the work that is within the scope of their certification as well. Ensure that the certificate holders carry a copy of their pocket certificate on them when performing the work. So it's important that they do have a copy of this. We're not asking for the original copy to be with them, but having a copy of that is important. Okay, before I turn over to Anil, I do have a few more slides, and I do want to talk about this new program called the Lapse Authorization Program. So next slide. On May 1 of this year, on May 1 of this fiscal year for us, but last calendar year, TSSA implemented a lapse authorization procedure to help the regulated parties keep their authorizations in good standing and remain compliant with the safety laws. And by authorization, we're talking about, let's say, the contractor registration. In order to achieve compliance, TSSA provides regulated parties with notice of authorization renewal on a number of occasions using various outreach methods. TSSA's process to renew an authorization begins 60 days before the renewal date and ends with the authorization being resolved. So as you see in the table, about 60 days prior to the expiry date, the renewal invoice will get sent out. 1 day after the expiry, authorization expiry letter gets sent out. 60 days after the expiry, authorization expiry reminder letter gets sent out. A week after that, authorization expiry reminder phone call from TSSA gets generated. 76 days after expiry, the authorization expiry reminder phone call from a TSSA inspector will be generated. And 83 days after the expiry is when there will be arrangements made for shutdown of operation by TSSA inspectors. So essentially, we're making sure that if an authorization has lapsed and the contractor with that authorization is no longer responding to us, we want to ensure that they are no longer in operation, and we will follow up with an actual physical inspection and be arranged for the shutdown of the operation if it hasn't been shut down already. Just maybe something to also keep in mind is that the lapse authorization renewal process applies to registration holders and not to the individual certificate holder. It was one of the strategic initiatives for TSSA as part of our journey of becoming an outcome-based regulator. An active authorization is necessary for TSSA to have the necessary oversight of the technical operations that we regulate. And by collecting the data required to validate knowledge, competency, and qualifications through periodic inspections and audits and regulatory prerequisites, we have the ability to ensure that authorization holders are operating safely. Having a registration informs the public that the business is operating legally and is actually authorized to operate. Um, let's stay on this slide. So the lapsed authorization initiative has resulted in an overall lapsed authorization resolution rate of 85% across all TSSA safety program areas, which is a resolution rate that we're very proud of. Considering the fact that the program is fairly new, our resolution rate is a very, very good rate, and we will continue to look for opportunities to further improve that. And on May 1 of this year, so just about 5 weeks from today's date, we will be going live with what's called the historic lapsed authorization program. And this one will be looking at authorizations that expired prior to April 30th of 2021 to bring those authorization holders back into compliance if warranted. That brings me to the end of my slides. I'm going to turn it over to Anil, who's going to talk about the Trunk Slammer program, its overview, objectives, and outreach. Anil, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sam, and thanks for the introduction. Although I'm new to TSSA, having joined late last year, I've been involved in TSSA regulated industries for a number of years in my career. At TSSA, a part of my role is to help manage and support the investigations team as they work through cases from first notification through to, and if warranted, prosecution in conjunction with TSSA's legal team. As a regulator, of course, is to ensure a level playing field for market participants that are abiding by technical legislation and regulations outlined in the TSS Act, which ultimately is to ensure safety for the general public. Fuel systems provide us comfort and a high standard of living, but of course there's always a potential danger if not designed, installed, and maintained correctly. So with that said, we'll go ahead and dive into the latest with our Trunk Slammer program for 2022. So what is the Trunk Slammer program? The Trunk Slammer program is essentially TSSA's ongoing initiative to track, trace, and stamp out uncertified and unsafe work. These would include tracking down individuals or organizations who pose as HVAC professionals, but do not hold valid certificates or registration licenses, and consequently, their work is not subject to TSSA audits via our contractor audit program and would not have a validated skill set. Additionally, they don't receive any industry updates or general safety awareness training, such as material recalls or standard updates. And since they are essentially driving without a license, there is no assurance they will comply with any other safety regulations once they have the customer's money. These individuals are essentially offering cheaper services by cutting corners, which puts human life at risk. So to address this issue, despite the fact that we consider the pursuit of trunk slammers to be an always ongoing and something we focus on our day-to-day amongst everything else we do at TSSA, we thought the topic is so important that TSSA launched our first ever month-long campaign to highlight the issue in March of 2020. And so now we in our third year of running this campaign. Based on the data I have available from the team, the campaign has been quite successful at raising awareness. As it seems in our inaugural year, we received 53 trunk slam reports, and in the year ending March 2022, we received 115 trunk slam reports, which is essentially a 100% increase in reports provided to us. We take this as a positive that our message is getting out to the public and industry, and they are starting to understand better how to identify and report these individuals. As well, in alignment with other national fraud prevention campaigns, TSSA has been actively trying to ensure that both our own inspectors and investigators are not being impersonated. I will touch on this a bit further in the slide deck, but all of these campaigns, of course, are trying to arm the public with knowledge on how to detect and verify legitimate fuel service professionals working with reputable organizations in the market. We feel this outreach approach is helping the public to understand the difference between a fuel technician license, whether they're G1, G2, whether it's fraudulent or not, and also the contractor registration information as well. So the campaign has 6 key objectives, and I'll go over them in the next 2 slides. The first one is to protect Ontario's public from the safety risks posed by uncertified gas technicians and unregistered contractors through awareness and education. And that is links with the slides that Sam presented earlier. 2 is to raise awareness among homeowners and educate them on what to look out for. 3, to help Ontarians appreciate the importance of verifying fuel service professionals. And to get this information out to the public in an easily digestible way, our team has worked to develop the following checklists that you can see on the screen here on the right side that help correctly identify a qualified contractor and a fuel professional separately. These are available broadly on our website, and I also believe on HRA's website, if I'm not mistaken. These checklists go over some of the basics that businesses would well adhere to in terms of not offering quotes without seeing the job, providing references, having a valid TSSA license number marked on the work vehicle, etc. And then the 3 other campaign objectives, which are mainly on TSSA's agenda. 4, which is to emphasize the importance and value of proper certification and registration, and is actually in line with our new OBR, which is the outcome-based regulator goal, which is to encourage uncertified technicians and unregistered contractors to become authorized workers, which is kind of bringing them in alignment with our regime. 5 is to demonstrate TSSA's zero tolerance policy with repeat offenders and start to make clear to those that attempt to circumvent the rules that there are substantial consequences to engaging in this unlawful activity. And 6, to strengthen the partnership with TSSA has with leaders in the industry, encourage reporting of illicit activity, and improve industry's confidence in TSSA's commitment to regulate the sector. I think I mentioned a bit earlier that compounding the trunk slammer issue was the impersonation situation, where individuals are posing as licensed and certified contractors. But we also have been notified of cases where organizations have tried to misappropriate TSSA's brand for commercial activities and even impersonating TSSA inspectors themselves, like those images you saw earlier of the van and business cards. There have been a couple of mainstream news articles as well that you may have noticed on this, which actually I'm going to click on that link here in a second, which is a CTV alert. And along with that, we've had other call-ins to us, such as we had a homeowner receive a complaint that they received an automated robocall by a company that was identifying itself as TSSA and wanting to arrange a furnace inspection, which is obviously an attempt to use our legitimacy to get into the home and then, upsell on equipment. These events are obviously taken very seriously, and although it's tough to police these issues every day, we do try to act on them with actionable information. And upon hearing this, we did publish a public advisory alerting homeowners to the fraud via our social media channels and our website. I'm going to try to click on this link here. Bear with me just one second. Everybody still see my screen?
Sell furnaces. Pat Foran has our story. When aggressive sales staff were misleading homeowners into buying or renting furnaces and air conditioners, Ontario imposed a ban on door-to-door sales.
That was 3 years ago, but Toronto police say it's happening again and just charged someone with impersonating a safety inspector trying to sell furnaces. Pat Foran has our story tonight on Consumer Alert. Pat.
Nathan and Michelle, police say the man was targeting people who just bought homes in this hot real estate market and claimed he was sent to make sure the furnace was working properly. But once inside, he tried to sell the homeowners a new furnace they didn't want or need. In March of 2018, the Ontario government banned door-to-door sales of furnaces, air conditioners, and other items. But Toronto police say during the pandemic, there have been reports of people posing as safety inspectors targeting homes that have just been purchased.
Once they were downstairs, the suspect then immediately turned into, this furnace is outdated and we need to sell you a new one. And I have some buddies that, will do it for cash and it will save you a lot of money.
The homeowner called police and the suspect was charged with uttering a forged document. He was driving this car with a magnetic gas services sign on the door, and he said he was with the Technical Standards and Safety Authority, or TSSA.
The uniform, the fake ID, everything would lead a person to believe he really did work for the TSSA.
The TSSA makes sure that all safety rules are followed in the province, but does not service or sell furnaces. It is aware of other reports of sales staff impersonating its employees.
TSSA will never show up at your home unannounced and ask to come in to your home to inspect your furnace.
Contractors working legally on gas furnaces, fireplaces, and water heaters must be properly trained to make sure the work is done in a safe manner.
It's very important that someone working on fuel-fired devices have the right skill and training, and they must be TSSA certified and registered.
If someone arrives at your door and wants to come in, remember, you can just say no.
Never allow somebody to come into your home for any reason that's just showing up unannounced.
You can check if someone is registered with the TSSA by calling the authority or checking their website to find a certified contractor near you. And be careful if you get a call from a business that wants to come to your home. As soon as you make an appointment, it's not considered a door-to-door sale. If for any reason you sign a contract, remember there is a 10-day cooling off period that allows you to cancel for any reason. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
Okay, hopefully everybody could hear that. Okay. So, you saw that presentation. We've probably seen all sorts of other media on TSSA. One thing we're doing, a little bit, we're getting a lot better at it. Thanks to our communication team, in particular, Trish Richards. We've started to really improve our connection with the general public via social media. We routinely issue press releases that get published to our social media channels and our website. And we have dedicated website landing pages with resources for much of what we've spoken about today, including, and the links are here, fraudulent fuels worker, a certified technician explainer, and verifying fuels contractors and an inspector's information page. One very cool new approach we've taken to really get in the face of a consumer who's going to, to look for a home contractor on the on the internet, especially Kijiji, which is very popular, is that we've worked with Kijiji to actually trigger our safety banner ads when someone does a keyword search in Kijiji for the top keywords related to the HVAC industry. Here in this slide, you can see that if someone types in HVAC, a lot of the contractors will show up, and then also our own banner ad that takes you to our own webpage comes up right when you type in HVAC. I've tested this personally a couple times, and it works quite well. Along with Kijiji, we are working towards the same thing with Facebook Marketplace, which we'll also be running ads related to TSSA initiatives targeted to Ontario homeowners in the province. Okay, so we've covered a few things there. I'm just going to go over how public can get in touch with us or anyone else in the industry can contact us to report a fraudulent fuels worker, an unregistered contractor, or a false technician. You can reach us via our customer service email or on our website, and let us know that you have any concern or tips related to a trunk slammer. This will get routed to our technical desk advisory team, and if warranted, passed on to the investigations team. If you would like to remain anonymous for a number of reasons, you can always send a note to our whistleblower service at tssa@integritycounts.ca email address. And as well, we also have our ombudsman contact information on our website as well. We encourage all HRA members to report on concerning activity to us. So what data do we have for the past couple of years? I'll go over this a little bit here. As I'm getting into and supporting the investigations team, I can tell you that many of our leads come in from the general public that get directed to our two full-time investigators that have been caught up in the services of fraudulent workers and are suffering the consequences of poor workmanship and unsafe situations. Additionally, we often receive tips from those who know the industry and are aware of unethical workers and organizations trying to skirt the rules. Once we receive the tips, our seasoned investigatory team evaluates and begins the process of following up and building a case to either bring the offender into compliance or take the case to prosecution. I can tell you we've been improving our own internal processes to track and move these cases expeditiously. We also proactively search for ads in other marketplaces where we know trunk slammers are soliciting their services to try and shut them down. Some numbers that I can share with you are that even before the first official trunk slammer campaign started, we already had 17 cases under investigation for trunk slammer activity. Remember that even though our formal campaign had just started, this type of work was always ongoing in the background. For the first year, between March 2020 and March 2021, after we had those 17 under investigation, the first year of running the campaign, we received 53 trunk slammer reports. Between March 2021 and March 2022, which is just ending now, we received 115 trunk slammer reports. So that's, again, another doubling. For the latest year, TSSA investigators have processed 66 of these reports, and of these, 41 were resolved through some positive reinforcement to either reach compliance or leave the market completely. The balance of these cases are under further review, and I'm unable to comment on them at this time. But I think it just shows that the campaign is having an impact, and it's increasing awareness of people to contact us, and also the number of cases that we're able to follow up on with legitimate information. So I'm just going to go through a couple past incidences that we have records of, and some of the team have already gone through the process with. Hopefully we have time for these. Loretta, let me know if we don't, but I'll continue. Here we have an image of an installation done by a facility employee. What I understand was they were probably trying to save money, which unfortunately led to an unsafe condition and some damage. An uncertified worker with no knowledge of venting installed an oil-fired furnace in the plant. The flue gases stopped about 5 feet away from the appliance, producing soot and a CO leak. The team at this facility, once they learned of their error, that they had done this without following the proper legislation and technical rules around it, were very forthright in working with TSSA and had the work done properly by a certified organization. As an additional learning, the plant turned to TSSA for IMT, which is Industrial Maintenance Technician Training, and certification, which is a part of our industrial support approach, and also a part of being an OBR organization. Here we had an installation in Colborne, Ontario. which was brought to our attention by Hutchison Fuels. As you can see, the copper line is just running underneath the green carpet on the ground with no mechanical protection, with a vent line that obviously doesn't meet code. And according to one of our investigators, was probably the longest vent pipe he'd seen in a residence. The homeowner then, I'll just read that, an oil change performed by a trunk slammer almost caused an oil spill. The flue gases in the oil vent pipe stopped in the chimney base where the condensate drained back into the basement, and the soot and CO entered the basement. The homeowner, once he realizes that this is a terrible mistake, turned to Hutchison Fuels to completely replace the heating system once they realized the dangers of this installation. The trunk slammer who did this work received cease and desist orders and was subsequently required to pay for the repair and damages through a civil action lawsuit in which TSSA testified on the owner's behalf. Here we have another poor installation put together by a repeat offender, which led to an investigation, charges, and ultimately a prosecution. In this case, the municipality had to get involved in the cleanup due to an owner default and abandonment with fees in the $1 million range. The trunk slammer involved in this work was convicted in Ontario Superior Court and received a substantial fine. And the last example I have here, or actually second to last, was a bit of a MacGruber installation where a homeowner and his friend with no qualifications tried to install a propane space heater in the back of his house with using incorrect tubing and regulator. Unfortunately, this led to an explosion that led to some superficial burns, albeit fortunately no fatalities. The individual involved survived and stated that the last thing he heard was the click of the barbecue lighter. Sadly, this was a case of a family in dire financial stress, and though legal orders were issued to cease and desist, TSSA continues to help direct the family to publicly funded financial assistance programs. Here, this is a legitimate trunk slammer in terms of commercial activity. In this situation, a condo board inadvertently ended up hiring a trunk slammer to convert electric baseboards to gas using a combo water heater type system, and obviously did not do a proper installation. Ultimately, TSSA issued the condo corporation legal orders and audited the tear out and reinstallation of properly installed equipment. The condo corporation was very cooperative in working with us, and our investigation found that the trunk slammer responsible had provided the condo corporation with false information, which was why they inadvertently hired him. And this highlights why we're trying to really help homeowners, condo boards, general public understand how to really know whether they're dealing with a trunk slammer or not. And this is just the, this was quite a large engagement by TSSA where, in terms of prosecution, where we had a technician school actually brought under or had not properly followed our regulation in terms of training. Last year, TSSA suspended the Appliance Technical Institute of Canada's authorization to deliver gas technician training programs. This was public information right now. Despite having been accredited by TSSA to provide the domestic appliance and gas technician courses, ATEC admitted to providing the gas technician 2 course without being accredited or approved by TSSA to do so, and for acting without integrity and honesty in its dealings with its students and TSSA. During the course of the investigation here, TSSA reached out to past and present students enrolled in the course to provide them with support and help them understand their options to get properly certified. And it led to one of the largest fines in general that TSSA has ever received from the courts. Ultimately, TSSA reminds those who are taking the fuels industry training to contact TSSA at any time to confirm that the providers were approved by TSSA to provide the training. Sam was involved in this this case if he has any further comments, but other than that, thank you very much. And if anybody has any questions.
Okay, hi Anil and Sam, thank you so much for this presentation. I have a few questions in the Q&A, and I'm going to encourage others, if you'd like to put your questions in. If you'd like to actually speak verbally, let us know. So some of these questions might have been answered earlier on, but I'm going to say them in any case. When will TSSA open up a hotline for bad install that we can call and report, just like Crime Stoppers, where the good contractor is not on the hook because we reported it?
I can take that question. I think as Anil alluded in one of his slides, there's really two ways of reporting such incidents. One of them is by contacting. Anil, do you want to just bring up the slide that shows the two email addresses maybe one more time? Yeah. As you see, there are two different email addresses. One of them is the customer service at tssa.org. And then the second one, which is the anonymous way, is TSSA and integritycounts.ca. The only ask is please make sure you're providing actionable information, something that actually allows us to be able to, take concrete and specific actions. Telling us something like, there's a contractor in St. Catherine who's doing work, that doesn't tell us anything. But if you say that, here's a phone number, or give us some specifics, like, sites of locations where that individual has done work, then that gives us actionable information, and that will be dealt with anonymously.
All right. So I have another question about the sticker. The TSSA sticker on the service truck is no longer needed. Just confirming.
The TSSA sticker is not allowed. So essentially what we said is that the TSSA logo is not allowed without an express consent, which in this case, really what we're saying is that the TSSA logo is not supposed to be used on, anyone's business cards or, correspondences or vehicles, unless those individuals are employed by TSSA.
Okay. I have another question here. Instead of calling to verify a certificate, why doesn't TSSA use a public registry like other trades?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. It's one of the things that is part of our strategic initiatives. What we're looking to do is do a revamp of our entire website, and there's going to be a significant amount of, I guess, consultation and engagement that's going to be done both internally as well as externally to ensure that our new website is going to be more customer friendly, as well as allowing our customers to be able to better navigate and get the information that they need. So this is something that is on our radar, and I'm looking forward to actually having that implemented in the. I think we're. Actually, I can't give any timelines. I don't have that information, but in the near term, we should see that happen.
Okay, sounds good. I have a few more questions. Does TSSA have any recommendations for wholesalers or distributors of gas equipment to prevent the sale and install of non-certified individuals?
Yeah, this question has actually come my way a few times in the past year and a few months that I've been in this role. We do not have the regulatory authority to prevent any wholesaler, distributors, places even like Home Depot, to prevent the sale of gas appliances to individuals that are not certified. It is not within our regulatory authority and power. But that being said, really our focus is on the individuals that will perform work without the appropriate certification or are performing work outside of the scope of the certification.
Okay. I have another question here. I applaud TSSA, or maybe this is more like a comment. I applaud TSSA for trying to shut down trunk slammers. I feel a big part of the issue With them is big box stores selling hot water tanks and other HVAC equipment. Some wholesalers will also sell to unlicensed people. Will we ever see a time when places like Home Depot and Lowe's stop selling equipment and even wholesalers?
Yeah. So I would kind of refer back to the previous response. I mean, as a regulator, we can only within the regulatory confines that are assigned to us as a delegated administrative authority. And we do not have that regulatory authority to prevent certain outlets from selling to different members of the public.
I have two more questions here. One that came through the chat. New subdivisions have a lot of trunk slammers. How should we report them? Do we need company name, or will your team go to new subdivisions? We are an RNC HVAC company and install the furnace and ductwork, and trunk slammers go in after and install poor quality AC and humidifier installs. Hold on one second here. I'm just trying to scroll down. And then damage the furnace, and we void the warranty in some cases.
Yeah.
Any comments on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really what it comes down to is the same phone number and email addresses you see on the screen. We encourage you. We actually ask the members of the H3I to be our eyes and ears out there. And when you do come across trunk slammers, please do report them to us. And I know, there's always that dilemma of reporting that, it could take someone's earning away from them. But at the same time, you kind of have to balance that against protecting the public safety, right? The gas is a force not to be reckoned with, and individuals that are not qualified to do the work will put people's lives in danger, right? So it is critical that you report those, and the phone number and the email address is the way to do it. My only ask again is to ensure that you're giving us actionable information, because literally with every single one of these complaints that come in, I have a weekly report that Anil and I will review, and it tells us how many complaints have been received in what region in Ontario, and the ones that are actionable and the information is substantiated, that will then result in an investigation. We have a full-time investigator who does exactly this, and then they will go for prosecution if the information is something that we could take for prosecution. And I would ask that please use this phone number and email address to report those.
All right, I have one more question. Well, more of a comment. You mentioned a graduate G2 out of school can become a registered contractor. In my opinion, this is concerning. Most graduates we hire need to be shadowed by a qualified tech for a period of time before we feel comfortable to be doing work, for them to be doing work on their own. Any comments on that or additions?
I appreciate the comment. I mean, at the end of the day, as long as the individual is working within the confines and the limits of their certification, that is something that they're legally allowed to do. And but they can.
Okay. I have one comment from somebody, but I'm not quite sure what they're going to say. I may have missed this information, but what liability and responsibility? Tony, do you want me to put you through verbally that you can ask your question? Just give me 1 second. I'm going to see. Oh, yeah, he says sure. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to talk. Hi, Tony. Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hi. Yeah, Tony. Why don't you ask your question? I didn't quite get it all in the chat.
Sorry, my return button went. My finger went faster than I was thinking. So,
no worries.
I guess the question, I don't know if I missed it in the presentation, but with regards to some of the issues that you showed as examples with the trunk slammers and unqualified people doing work, what were the outcomes of the owners that allowed that work to happen, other than the write-ups? Are they fined? Do they have any responsibility other than just having their hands slapped for doing that?
When you say owners, are you referring to the facility owner?
The condominium, the facility, the owner of the building, the property management firms, like anybody that that have hired these individuals without, checking for qualifications.
Yeah, so you're talking about the victims essentially.
Yes, the victims. Yeah.
So in
Well,
the case-
are they really a victim if they know that these people are not qualified? They could pretend to be victims, but then it doesn't mean they're really victims, right?
Well, they suffer because they end up paying the first time, they have to do the work again. So there's a bit of a,
right.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, our focus is really around number one, the education aspect of this, and then bringing the unlicensed individuals into compliance. And if those options don't work, then prosecution is the route we will be taking. But we would always look for ways to bring those individuals into compliance through education, outreach program. And if those possibilities don't work, or if someone, or if they have, resulted in significant damage and have disregarded everything, then yeah, we will be taking the route of investigation and prosecution.
Okay. I find in our examples that we have in our company is that most of those times it's always about the low bid. And they do know, because most of the contractors that are qualified do make it quite aware, either in the quotes or in their correspondence or even in their meetings with the end user or the owner, that make sure you hire qualified people. So when that comes about, I mean, if they just get off with a notice and failure to comply, yes, their punishment is that they're paying twice. But if they get away with it, then it defeats the purpose. There has to be some kind of responsibility for the owner of the building not having qualified people do their work, right? So.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tony. We as TSSA, the regulator, we can't go after the homeowner or the person that does that. We can only regulate, the operators, the technicians.
Right.
That's why we're trying to reach out as much as we can and kind of inform customers and people that ask for this work what to do, who to look for, how to do it, and ultimately trying to make sure they stay safe, because that's the biggest risk, right? Is going with
Correct.
someone who does not know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we try to make it a safety aspect, that you're putting yourself at risk by doing this, and that's really what we have in our toolbox right now.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just bringing up the frustration side of the contractors, right? Where we're trying. There's a lot of responsible contractors out there. We're doing our best. And I think over the years, it's gotten a lot better since the regulations were enforced. But there's always the new individuals that have to keep being retrained, right? Because they don't know about it. So, anyways, thank you. Appreciate the comment.
Thank you, Tony. I just have one other question. Are there any plans to have apprenticeship programs for gas fitters?
I can't speak to any
apprenticeship programs
that I'm aware of.
Yep.
About an apprenticeship program for the gas fitters. Except the news release on February 25th about the government of Canada announced its intention to offer the Red Seal endorsement for the fuel-related certificate holders, and that included G1, G2, and OBT1. And that is something that right now we're just working with the ministry to just gather more information, understand what that means and the impact. But that's as far as I can speak to the apprenticeship program or the possible existence of such.
Okay. Len, would you have another individual who wants to ask a question verbally? I don't know what his question is. Are you okay with that, or?
We'll take that as the last question. I know.
Yeah,
Anil,
sure. No problem. No problem.
Another meeting.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Hi, Len.
Hi. Yeah. Thanks. I'm driving here listening to the whole conversation. Just something to think about. Maybe there's some way of us being able to log in to a portal as being licensed contractors for every job and have them registered. So basically, you know, the customer knows that the jobs are, no, I'm not looking at like an electrical permit. I'm thinking of something that me as an owner can have my office register an installation, especially installations. I know service calls is a priority as well, but especially installations. So it's registered, and only a registered contractor can go into that portal and register the address. And if it's not registered, the homeowner, I mean, it's unfortunately, it's in their hands.
That's a cool idea. That's a cool idea.
Yeah, I
Right,
mean,
I'm not talking, you know, I'm not talking about paying for permits, because that's a whole other process that is being taken advantage of as well. But for us to go in, register it under my business ID, okay, and you know, the customer will know that the job's been registered, and that's it. And at least the customer knows that they're dealing with a registered contractor.
yeah. Len, I mean, as part of the whole website revamp, there's going to be a significant amount of stakeholder engagement that we will have to do. Obviously, we're going to be receiving many different kinds of requests. We have to assess their practicalities and, you know, prioritize them against the budget that's available for that project. But when the time comes, I would actually welcome you to submit it as a possible opportunity for us to consider. I'm sure you're going to be hearing some more formal engagement about our website redevelopment in the near future.
Okay, so we're at 1:05, went a little bit over. Thank you so much, Anil and Sam. Really appreciate your time today. And everyone, if you could see on the screen, we still have the information up there on how to report some fraudulent fuel workers. At the same time, you can always get a hold of Anil and Sam at TSSA as well. This session will be recorded and is recorded and will be available as a link after the session in an email. And please fill out the survey, so it gives us an idea of how we can provide some other webinars. Thank you again, Sam and Anil. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, and it was a pleasure being here. Wishing everyone a safe rest of the day. Have a nice day.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.